Tonight, you're invited to drift with me into the quiet world of water, a gentle journey following a single raindrop from its first breath as ocean mist to its soft return home again. So, take a slow breath, let your shoulders soften, and allow the rhythm of water to guide you into calm. Tonight's story is The Secret Life of Rain, a slow drift through fog, dew, ripples, and reflections, a reminder that even the smallest drop carries entire worlds within it. Far out on a quiet morning sea, where the horizon blurs into a pale silver haze, a single thread of mist begins to rise. You wouldn't notice it if you were standing there. It lifts so gently, so lightly, that it seems less like movement and more like a soft exhale from the water itself. This is where the raindrop's story begins, in a place where the air tastes faintly of salt and the waves breathe in slow, steady rhythm. Sunlight spreads across the surface like liquid gold, and the sea warms just enough for tiny beads of water to loosen their hold. They shimmer for a moment, suspended, before drifting upward into the open sky. As the mist rises, it carries countless small secrets with it. Traces of sunlight, echoes of tides, the memory of shells hidden beneath the waves. Each droplet moves quietly, without rush, weaving itself into the soft morning air. High above, the sea releases more and more of these delicate threads, and they gather into a faint veil of fog. From a distance, it looks like the ocean is slowly dissolving into the sky. And in a way, it is. The boundary between sea and air melts into a gentle blur, where nothing is quite separate, where everything is softly becoming something else. The raindrop drifts higher, lifted by warm currents that wrap around it like invisible hands. The world below grows smaller, its details fading into muted blues and grays. Up here, sound changes. The hush of waves becomes a distant hum. The wind moves more freely, swirling with a weightless kind of purpose. Clouds form in the far distance, pale shapes waiting to gather the mist into their quiet folds. As it climbs, the droplet passes through layers of air that feel cooler, softer, dimmer. Other droplets join it, floating together like tiny lanterns carried upward. They don't hurry, they simply rise because rising is what the warmth invites them to do. Some droplets cling to one another for a moment, before drifting apart again, like small greetings exchanged between travelers who meet on a misty path. Others settle briefly on particles of dust or salt, becoming heavier, more defined. The early beginnings of what will one day fall as rain. But for now, everything is lightness, everything is drifting, everything is quiet. The droplet feels the gentle pull of the forming cloud above. It moves toward it the way a feather moves toward stillness. Not by force, but by a soft invitation. The cloud is gathering itself from vapor and sunlight, building a floating home out of breath and brightness. As the raindrop enters this rising world, the air cools around it, folding it into a place where time seems to slow. Inside the cloud, countless droplets hover in suspension. Some sparkle with sunlight caught from below. Others glow faintly in the muted light, drifting through the cloud's outer veil. Together, they create a kind of floating community, a quiet sky village made entirely of mist. Here, the droplet rests. It sways gently with the movement of the wind, brushing against neighboring droplets in soft, weightless touches. Outside the cloud, birds glide through open air, their wings cutting delicate paths through the mist. Sometimes their feathers collect tiny beads of water that sparkle like morning dew before falling away again. Inside this suspended world, the droplet begins to cool, its shape growing more rounded, more certain. It is still light enough to float, but the promise of falling could someday begins forming quietly within. But there is no hurry. Clouds are patient. Mist is patient. And the journey of a raindrop is written in slow, drifting lines. For now, it simply exists, held by the sky, remembering the warmth of the sea below and waiting for the next soft shift in the air. Inside the cloud, time feels different, stretched, softened, almost weightless. The little droplet drifts among thousands of others, each one a tiny sphere of skyborne memory. They float together like beads of glass suspended in a vast pale lantern. Light passes through them in muted shades, turning some into faint rainbows and others into cool pearls of silver. The raindrop sways gently, nudged by slow-moving currents that flow through the cloud's interior. These currents are whispers soft, created by the push and pull of warm and cool air rising and falling in gentle waves. Somewhere deep below, sunlight touches the ocean and sends warmth upward. Somewhere above, cooler winds gather and settle. The cloud is the meeting place, the quiet middle of the sky, where all of these movements soften into calm. From within, the cloud feels almost like a floating world with its own weather. Wisps of vapor drift like soft trails of breath. Thin veils of fog stretch and curl, weaving delicate patterns that shift with every passing moment. The raindrop drifts through these shapes the way a leaf might drift along a peaceful stream, carried but never rushed. Nearby, droplets occasionally merge, forming sparkling beads that glow faintly in the soft, ambient light. Each time two droplets meet, there's a tiny moment of transformation, a small joining of histories, one perhaps lifted from a quiet lake, another from the breath of a warm forest, another from snow melted on a distant mountain peak. In the cloud, all of these origins gather peacefully, their stories blending into a shared stillness. The raindrop itself brushes gently against others, sometimes lingering for a heartbeat before drifting apart. These small touches feel like greetings, brief, soft acknowledgments of existence in a place where everything floats and everything is held. Outside the cloud, the world continues its own rhythm. Winds move across open sky. Birds trace arcs through air that seems to shimmer at the edges where sunlight meets moisture. But inside, the cloud remains hushed. Even thunder far in the distance is softened into a distant breath that never quite reaches this hidden interior. As the raindrop lingers here, it begins to grow heavier. It thickens slightly, gathering layers of cooled vapor that condense around its surface. This is the cloud's quiet work, shaping droplets slowly, patiently, until they are ready to fall. But the process is gentle and unhurried. There is no urgency in the sky, no rush for the droplet to leave its floating sanctuary. Occasionally, the droplet senses a faint thrum from below, a subtle shift as the cloud drifts over land. The air beneath becomes cooler, rising in soft eddies that cradle the droplets, holding them aloft. Nearby, tendrils of the cloud reach downward, forming delicate curtains that sway like pale veils over a landscape hidden far below. The droplet wonders in its quiet way, what waits beyond this place? Does it fall into a forest where leaves shimmer with dew? Does it land in a stream that glides over smooth stones? Or will it return straight to the sea, completing the simplest version of its cycle? For now, None of these possibilities take shape clearly. They exist only as gentle hints in the drifting air. Around it, the light begins to change. The cloud thickens in places, deepening into soft grays. Sunlight becomes diffused, turning the cloud into a glowing cocoon with no sharp edges. Even the droplet's own reflection disappears into the surrounding mist, replaced by the shared gleam of countless droplets moving together. And still, it floats, held by the sky, waiting for the gentle moment when weight will begin to tug downward and the next part of its journey will unfold. The cloud continues to drift, humming softly with the breath of wind, gathering moisture and stories as it moves across the sky. The droplet rests within its quiet heart, where every moment feels like a soft pause, a place where the world is made of mist and nothing needs to hurry. Soon, the journey downward will begin, but not yet, not until the cloud gently decides. Inside the drifting cloud, the little droplet begins to feel a quiet change, a soft heaviness settling around its edges, like a gentle reminder that it has a path to follow. The air cools slightly, tightening the droplet's round shape, making it just a little heavier than the breath that keeps it afloat. All around, other droplets begin to sense the shift too, drifting closer together in a slow, graceful gathering. The cloud itself responds with a subtle exhale. Its lower layers thicken, deepening into soft folds that brush against the cooler air below. These folds form curtains of mist that drift downward like pale ribbons, stretching toward the unseen land waiting far beneath. The droplet moves with them, not falling yet, but easing into the gentle downward pull. Below, the landscape remains hidden. Only hints of color drift upward. The faint green of distant forests, the soft gray of stones warmed by early morning light. Even these colors arrive muted, wrapped in the quiet veil of the cloud. Everything feels softened, slowed, as if the world is preparing a place for the droplet to land. As the droplet shifts slightly downward, it passes through thin layers of cool air that cause it to grow once more. Nearby, droplets merge with it, joining in brief, shimmering touches that enlarge its shape. Each new layer carries a memory, a bit of ocean warmth, a trace of lake mist, a whisper of dew lifted from an early meadow. The droplet becomes a small gathering of journeys, gently held together. Gravity, patient and calm, finally begins to guide it. At first, the movement is so soft the droplet barely notices. It simply drifts downward with the faintest sense of direction, like a feather responding to the sigh of a distant breeze. It no longer floats quite as freely. It begins to glide. Leaving the heart of the cloud, the droplet enters a quieter, cooler space. Light becomes clearer, revealing a world still wrapped in soft gray, but brightening at the edges. Thin strands of vapor cling briefly to its surface, then slip away as it continues downward. The journey becomes a slow descent through layers of changing air. Around it, countless droplets fall alongside, each moving at its own unhurried pace. Together, they form a silver curtain, a drifting veil that catches sunlight in faint glimmers. The sound, if one could hear it from within, would be something like a soft whisper, the hushed movement of water returning to earth. The droplet begins to sense the world below more vividly now. A breeze rises from the ground, carrying the scent of leaves, damp soil, and moss. This scent is cool and earthy, a quiet welcome rising from the forest floor. It wraps around the falling droplets like a gentle greeting, guiding them toward the green canopy waiting below. The descent becomes slightly faster, though still peaceful. The droplet passes through the outer edges of the cloud, leaving behind the silver-gray cocoon and entering open air. Here, light shifts and stretches across its rounded surface, turning it into a tiny lens that reflects the sky in soft, trembling shapes. Now, the forest begins to appear, first as a textured shadow, then as a tapestry of greens and countless shades. From high above, the canopy looks like an endless blanket of leaves moving in slow waves under the touch of the wind. Small pockets of mist cling to the treetops, drifting lazily between branches. It is toward this living landscape that the droplet continues its fall. The air grows warmer. The droplet trembles slightly from the change, smoothing its surface and brightening in the light. Below, the forest breathes upward, sending subtle currents of rising warmth that slow its descent just a little, allowing the fall to stretch out into something gentle and unhurried. Closer now, the shapes of individual leaves begin to form. Some glisten with dew that hasn't yet evaporated. Others sway softly, offering the slightest of movements to cushion the incoming rain. The droplet sees reflections in their surfaces, the sky, the clouds, even hints of other falling droplets mirrored in each curve of green. And then, with the softest touch imaginable, the droplet lands, not on the ground, not in a stream, but on a single waiting leaf, a leaf broad enough to catch it, calm enough to hold it, and quiet enough to let it rest. Here, in the cool hush beneath the cloud, the droplet settles into a small cradle of green. Its fall is complete, but its journey is only beginning. The forest greets the raindrop with a hush so gentle it feels like a held breath. The leaf beneath it curves slightly, forming a soft cradle where water can gather without rushing away. The droplet settles into this small green basin, trembling once, then becoming still. Around it, the canopy moves in slow motion. Leaves tilt and sway, catching faint threads of wind that drift downward from far above. Sunlight filters through in delicate shifting patterns, leaving warm golden patches that dance across the leaf's surface. Some beams of light reach the droplet directly, turning it into a tiny orb of shimmering reflections. A little mirror that holds the sky, the trees, and even the soft outline of nearby leaves within its curved walls. The droplet rests, held by the leaf's soft, waxy texture. Here, time becomes patient again. Tiny vibrations travel through the leaf each time a bird lands nearby, though the movement is so subtle the droplet only feels it as a small echo. Every shift is gentle. Every sound is softened by layers of moss, bark, and foliage. The forest is not silent. It breathes in countless quiet ways. A beetle moves through the undergrowth below. Distant streams ripple faintly between stones. A breeze brushes against the canopy, releasing tiny flecks of moisture that drift downward like faint mists of dew. But everything blends into a calm, continuous rhythm, as if the forest is humming a low, soothing lullaby to itself. The droplet's journey slows now, entering a moment meant purely for stillness. It spreads ever so slightly across the leaf, forming a small lens that magnifies the green beneath it. Through its rounded surface, the leaf's tiny veins appear like gentle pathways, delicate lines carrying quiet rivers of life. The droplet rests upon this network, becoming for a moment part of the leaf's story. Gradually, the sun warms the forest. As warmth settles across the canopy, the droplet begins to thin around its edges. The leaf releases a faint scent, cool, fresh, touched with the sweetness of morning rain, and the droplet absorbs that scent into its quiet being. Evaporation begins its soft work, but it is not a departure yet. It is more like a stretching, a small loosening of form. Other droplets rest nearby, each on their own leaf or blade of grass. Together, they glitter like beads scattered through a green tapestry. Some slide slowly toward the tips of leaves, gathering enough weight to fall lightly into the air once more. Others merge with their neighbors, forming slightly larger pools that reflect sunlight in trembling, liquid shapes. But this droplet stays. It is held gently, as though the leaf knows that this moment, this pause, is essential. A small breeze flows through the forest, brushing against the canopy. It rocks the leaf very slightly, causing the droplet to tremble. For a moment, the droplet clings more tightly, surface tension giving it strength. It remains in place, continuing to rest in the quiet morning light. Below, the forest floor absorbs the first drops that fall from other leaves. They land on moss, on stones, on patches of rich soil where seeds wait. Each falling drop creates the faintest imprint, a little darkened mark of moisture that begins to soak inward. These tiny imprints are the forest's softest storytellers, marking the beginning of the water's next chapter. But not yet for this droplet. It remains in the cradle of its leaf, letting sunlight and shade pass over it in slow, alternating waves. Something changes when a cloud drifts overhead. The warmth fades, replaced by cool shadow. With the shift, the droplet's surface gathers tiny beads around its edges. Not from rising heat this time, but from the feather-light touch of new mist drifting through the canopy. The mist settles gently, adding to the droplet's shape, helping it regain the fullness it had briefly begun to lose. The droplet becomes round again, complete again, ready for the next quiet movement. As the breeze rises just slightly, the leaf tilts. The droplet feels the faintest tug, a suggestion rather than a command. It begins to move toward the tip, slowly, carefully, as though testing the path. And then, with the softest release, it slips free, falling not with speed, but with grace, descending toward the forest floor, where roots and soil, moss and stone wait to receive it. The droplet's time on the leaf comes to an end, but the story flows forward, downward into the green world below, where shadows cool the earth and tiny pathways of water weave unseen. The droplet drifts down from the leaf in a slow, delicate arc, moving through air scented with earth and moss. Its descent is almost silent, a small, glimmering bead falling through a world of green shadows. Below, the forest floor softens itself in welcome, its layers of fallen leaves, rich soil, and tender moss forming a cushion ready to receive the rain. The droplet lands on a patch of moss that yields instantly beneath its touch. The surface depresses slightly, like a soft bed adjusting to the shape of a resting guest. For a moment, the droplet sits on top, perfectly round, reflecting the muted colors of the canopy above. Deep greens, soft browns, hints of golden light slipping through. The moss embraces it gently. Tiny fibers, almost invisible, cradle the droplet and draw it inward with patient absorption. The droplet sinks slowly, becoming part of the moss's hidden network, where moisture moves in quiet, steady threads through the forest floor. Here, the world feels different, cooler, dimmer, held in a hush that lives beneath the trees. The forest floor is a place where footsteps fade, where light breaks into tiny fragments as it passes through leaves above. and where water moves in ways almost too subtle to notice. The droplet now travels through this space, slipping between soil grains, resting in small hollows, and soaking into roots that reach outward like gentle hands. Nearby, other droplets arrive, one by one. Some land on fallen leaves that curl like little boats. Others strike stones with the faintest tap before rolling into crevices lined with moss. Together, they form a slow-moving mosaic of moisture, each drop taking its own delicate path downward. The droplet moves deeper into the soil, guided by gravity and the forest's quiet thirst. It passes through dark, rich earth that has been shaped by centuries of falling leaves and quiet rains. The soil is alive, full of tiny channels carved by insects, soft tunnels made by small roots, and pathways so narrow only water can find them. As it travels, the droplet cools further, becoming part of the forest's hidden reservoir. It joins moisture that has lingered for days or weeks, stored gently in pockets beneath the surface. These hidden pools are the forest's silent memory, holding moments of past rains, past mists, past storms, softened into quiet droplets of life. The droplet rests again, nestled in the dark soil beneath a cluster of ferns. Above, their delicate fronds sway, scattering patterns of shadow that shift like gentle waves across the ground. The air tastes of damp earth and faint traces of pine, a scent that rises from the soil each time the wind moves through the understory. In this calm place, the droplet becomes part of something larger. It feeds roots so thin they resemble threads of light. It moistens soil that cradles seeds, waiting for their moment to grow. It lingers near tiny fungi that weave unseen pathways, carrying nutrients through a network older than the forest itself. Time passes softly here. Sunlight filters down in narrow beams that warm the ground for a few moments before fading as clouds drift lazily overhead. When warmth returns, the droplet feels a gentle pull, not downward this time, but upward, called by the quiet rise of evaporation. The forest breathes deeply. Moisture rises from the soil in thin, invisible threads, joining the air in soft exhalations. The droplet, now part of this breath, begins to lift once more. The upward movement is gradual, almost imperceptible. It is as if the forest whispers an invitation to rise, to join the play of mist drifting through the understory. The droplet responds, loosening its hold on the earth, allowing itself to be carried upward toward the dim, green-filtered light. Leaves rustle. Birdsong echoes faintly. A beam of sunlight cuts through the shadows, illuminating floating specks of moisture that shimmer like tiny stars. The droplet joins them, lifted by warmth and breath, beginning its slow return to the open air. From soil to vapor, from darkness to light, it rises again, just as softly as it first fell. Its journey continues, unfolding upward through branches and fern-framed spaces toward a sky it once descended from. As the droplet rises from the forest floor, it moves into a space where air and light weave gently together. Warmth lifts it in small, delicate steps, not a sudden ascent, but a slow drifting upward, as if the forest is exhaling it with care. The canopy above glows softly in scattered beams, creating shifting patches of brightness that guide the rising mist. Tiny threads of moisture swirl around the droplet, forming a faint halo that glimmers when the light catches it. These threads drift upward as well, each one carrying its own small story of soil, shadow, and leaf. Together, they join in a gentle dance that feels both weightless and purposeful. The droplet becomes lighter still, stretching into the airy world of vapor. Its edges soften, its shape loosens. Its form becomes something that feels closer to breath than water. Around it, other droplets rise from moss, fallen leaves, and patches of warm earth. Each one joins the quiet upward movement, creating a drifting cloud of mist that hovers beneath the canopy. Ferns tremble slightly as the air thickens with moisture, and the filtered sunlight scatters in pale, shimmering rays. The forest feels alive with softness. Moss glows with a damp sheen. Leaves sparkle with fading traces of dew. The air holds the scent of earth warmed gently after rain, cool, calming, touched with the faint sweetness of distant pine. As the droplet ascends, it brushes against thin branches where moisture gathers in tiny beads. Some of those beads release, gliding downward toward the soil, while others join the mist rising into the understory. The exchange is constant, a quiet cycle of falling and lifting that makes the forest feel as though it is breathing in slow rhythm. The droplet floats upward past branches that weave delicate silhouettes against the light. Spiderwebs shimmer nearby, each thread holding tiny captured beads that catch the sunlight and turn it into soft, iridescent glows. The droplet drifts close enough to brush the faintest bit of moisture from one of these threads, joining it into its airy form. Higher now, the mist begins to gather more fully. What once was a single droplet becomes part of a wider veil of moisture, gently stretching into the shapes of vapor. The air cools gradually as the canopy thins, and the droplet senses the pull of open sky above, not urgent, not insistent, but inviting. A breeze moves through, soft, cool, carrying the deep quiet of the forest with it. It lifts the mist layer upward, gathering it like a fine, translucent fabric. Leaves rustle as the breeze passes, sending small spirals of moisture into the air. The droplet rises with them, its form blending more seamlessly with the surrounding vapor. As it moves beyond the topmost leaves, the change becomes striking. Light opens around it, shadows thin. The canopy falls away into a world of sky where blue stretches softly and clouds drift with unhurried grace. Here, the droplet fully becomes mist once more, a faint, shimmering trace in the morning air. It no longer feels the weight of soil or the cradle of the leaf. It carries only the memory of cool moss, dim forest light, and the gentle rhythm of roots beneath the ground. Now, part of the open air, the droplet rises higher, warming slightly as sunlight touches its soft, new shape. It drifts upward with other traces of vapor, forming slow-moving patterns that twist and scatter like delicate threads of silk. The forest retreats below, becoming a textured tapestry of greens. Its breath follows the droplet for a moment longer, then disperses quietly among the trees. Higher still, closer to the drifting forms of clouds that wait in the quiet upper air. The droplet feels the familiar pull, the soft call of the cloud it once knew. Soon, it will join again with those floating realms of gray and silver. But for now, it simply rises, weightless and peaceful, carried on a breeze that tells it the sky is ready. Rising through the warm morning air, the droplet drifts upward in its soft, mist-like form, carried by currents that move with an almost dreamlike gentleness. Below, the forest settles back into its green hush, the canopy swaying in calm, rhythmic motions as sunlight glimmers across small patches of lingering dew. The droplet floats higher, feeling the layers of air cool around it with each passing moment. As it climbs, it begins to sense the presence of a cloud forming above. a pale shape gathering slowly, much like a drifting thought taking form in the sky. Tendrils of mist reach downward, inviting the rising vapor to join. These soft tendrils appear almost like delicate fingers of fog, stretching into the open air to collect the drifting droplets. The droplet feels lighter than ever now. It no longer holds the weight of its fall or the stillness of the forest floor. Instead, it moves freely with a sense of openness that shines in the soft morning light. Other traces of vapor rise alongside it, forming a gentle stream of upward-moving breath from the warm earth below. Together they gather, creating a faint glow where the sunlight meets the mist. This glow moves with them, shimmering like a quiet thread weaving between droplets. As the droplet nears the cloud, the air becomes noticeably cooler. Tiny crystals of moisture linger in the air, brushing softly against the droplet's surface. The feeling is tender, like a whisper or a cool sigh drifting across the skin of the sky. The cloud's boundary feels porous, gentle, and welcoming. With a final small lift from the warm air below, the droplet crosses that boundary. It enters the quiet interior of the cloud, a serene, suspended world made of silver-gray light and soft, swirling forms. Inside, everything feels familiar yet new. The droplet recognizes the stillness, the diffused glow, the way sound seems to hush the moment it enters. But this cloud is not the same one it left. It has grown, shifted, changed shape in the time the droplet spent traveling through forest and soil. It is now fuller, denser, and heavier with collected moisture. Other droplets inside float gently, waiting in delicate balance. Some merge softly when they meet, forming larger beads. Others cling to faint traces of dust or drift freely without purpose except to exist in this space of suspended calm. The droplet takes its place among them, settling into the cloud's cool embrace. It slows, held by the gentle upward motions of the airflow that keep the droplets aloft. The air swirls in slow currents, guiding the droplets through looping paths that drift in and out of faint beams of filtered sunlight. Every now and then, the cloud shifts shape. Edges billow, shadows deepen or lighten. Sunlight brushes across the droplets in soft arcs of brightness. Through these delicate changes, the droplet feels its form begin to return, becoming round again, condensing from mist into a small sphere of water. It feels itself gathering weight, though the weight comes slowly, like a thought forming with patience rather than urgency. The cloud drifts across the sky, carried by winds that move gently from the horizon. Below it, the forest appears as a quiet patchwork of greens. Rivers shimmer in thin silver lines. Distant hills soften into blue-gray silhouettes. The droplet sees none of this in detail, but it senses the slow movement of the cloud's shadow gliding across the land. Inside the cloud, life continues in calm rhythm. Droplets drift. Moisture condenses. Winds hum softly through the cloud's outer edges. The droplet rests in this suspended world, held between earth and sky. It feels no need to hurry. Clouds do nothing in haste. They gather, they breathe, they drift, and they release. For now, the droplet simply exists in this moment of quiet stillness, letting the cool air shape it, letting the soft light cradle it. It becomes rounder still, its tiny weight returning bit by bit. When the time comes, the cloud will loosen its hold and let the droplets fall once more. But not yet. Not while the morning remains soft and the cloud is still gathering its breath. Inside the cloud's quiet sanctuary, the droplet continues to drift, suspended in cool, silvery air. All around it, other droplets float in gentle patterns, rising and falling with each subtle movement of wind. They touch lightly, separate softly, and merge when the moment feels right. This is the cloud's quiet work, a slow shaping, a delicate gathering. The droplet, newly formed again, feels its surface cool and smooth. Tiny beads of moisture condense along its edges, joining it one by one, adding to its roundness and weight. Each bead is a small memory from the world below. Echoes of the forest floor, hints of moss and soil, traces of sunlight that lifted them into the air. As they merge, the droplet grows heavier, though the heaviness feels gentle, not a burden, but a sign that its next chapter is drawing closer. Around it, the cloud thickens. Veils of vapor drift inward, folding into soft layers that deepen in color. Light fades into muted tones, turning silver into pale gray, gray into soft pearl. Deep within the cloud, currents of air rise and fall in slow waves. The rising air holds the droplets aloft, while the falling air encourages them to gather. The two movements blend together, creating a delicate balance that cradles the droplets until they are ready to descend. The droplet senses this balance shifting, just slightly, just enough to feel like a quiet whisper of gravity calling from below. Nearby, droplets drift closer, their surfaces shimmering as they brush against one another. Some join together, forming larger beads that hang suspended for a moment before sinking deeper into the cloud. Others cling to tiny floating particles that help them grow in shape and weight. The droplet moves slowly downward, though it does not fall yet. It drifts through layers of cooling air, past clusters of droplets that reflect faint hints of light from outside. The movements are soft, almost imperceptible, a gradual settling, a gentle gathering. In the distance, the cloud's edge brightens slightly as sunlight filters through a thinning patch. The brightness scatters across droplets, making them glow like a drifting veil of tiny lanterns. Even the droplet feels the warmth of this light, turning its surface into a small glimmer that fades as quickly as it appears. The cloud shifts again, nudged by a breeze that rolls through like a soft tide. Within this movement, droplets sway together, creating a quiet rhythm. Upward, downward, sideways, a slow dance held in suspended air. The droplet begins to sense the familiar pull of falling. It rests in that in-between space where suspension meets descent, where the cloud begins to release its hold one breath at a time. The air feels heavier, cooler, and more still in certain pockets. These pockets guide the droplets toward the cloud's lower layers. As the droplet drifts into this deeper space, it grows again, not quickly, but steadily. It gains a slight weight that wasn't there before, a promise forming quietly within its rounded shape. Yet, even with this gathering heaviness, there is no rush. The cloud remains patient. Below, the world waits in soft anticipation. Forests stretch gently toward the sky. Rivers coil through valleys in quiet silver lines. Stones hold the warmth of earlier sun, ready to meet the cool touch of new rain. But the droplet stays suspended for a little while longer, feeling the slow pull, the deepening of weight, the cloud's careful letting go. One final merge happens. A drifting droplet touches it lightly, joins seamlessly, and makes the droplet whole in a new way. The combined weight settles into balance. The moment is coming. The descent will return. But even the beginning of a fall is gentle in the life of rain. For now, It hangs at the cloud's lower edge, where the world below blurs into greens and grays, and the sky above remains soft and endless. Soon it will slip free, and the journey downward will begin again. At the lower edge of the cloud, the droplet feels the moment finally arrive. The balance shifts, not sharply, not suddenly, but with the quiet certainty of a breath being released. The cool air beneath the cloud no longer holds the droplet aloft. Instead, it offers a gentle invitation downward, and so the droplet begins to fall again. The descent starts softly. The droplet glides through air that feels like a smooth, cooling stream. Cloud gray light fades behind it, replaced by open sky stretching in pale, luminous tones. Beneath the droplet, the world becomes clearer, an unfolding mosaic of deep greens, winding blues, and the soft glimmer of sunlight resting on leaves. The forest canopy rises to greet it, but this time the droplet slips past the upper branches. It moves between drifting pockets of mist that hover like small floating companions. Each wisp brushes by gently, leaving a faint coolness on the droplet's surface. As it falls lower, the canopy thins, revealing glimpses of the forest floor. But the droplet is drawn toward something else, a ribbon of silver weaving quietly through the landscape. The river. Its surface reflects the sky in trembling patterns, stirred by the faintest breath of wind. Light glimmers across small ripples that radiate outward, each one a soft imprint of movement. From above, the river looks peaceful and patient, curving through the forest like a gentle line of memory. The droplet falls toward this shimmering path. A breeze rises, guiding it slightly sideways. The droplet drifts with the breeze, moving across the canopy rather than straight through it. Below, leaves shift and rustle, releasing tiny beads of moisture that catch the morning light. The droplet continues downward, slipping between layers of cool forest air. Each layer feels slightly different, one tinged with earth, one warmed by sunlight, one filled with the faint scent of cedar. These scents rise to meet the falling droplet, as though the forest itself is offering a quiet greeting. As the droplet nears the river, the sound of moving water becomes noticeable, not loud, but present in a soft, steady rhythm. A hush of flow, a murmur of currents touching stones, a quiet sighing where water meets water. The droplet descends toward a calm section of the river where the surface smooths into a silver mirror. For a moment, it hovers just above the water, suspended in the last breath of falling. The river reflects its tiny round shape, forming a fleeting image that shimmers once before disappearing. Then, the softest touch, the droplet joins the river. Instead of sinking immediately, it spreads across the surface in a delicate ripple. The ripple expands outward in perfect circles, each ring growing fainter as it moves across the water. For a moment, the droplet becomes part of the river's quiet skin, catching sunlight and sending it outward in tiny, sparkling curves. The river accepts the droplet with complete ease, folding it into its flow. Now, the droplet becomes movement. It glides with the gentle current, slipping between reflections of branches overhead. Leaves above cast shifting patterns across the surface, greens, golds, silvers, all trembling with the river's slow drift. Every small stone beneath the water reshapes the current slightly, creating subtle eddies that swirl like soft, underwater spirals. The droplet feels these changes, the lift of a gentle swell, the downward pull near a deeper bend, the calm slide along smoother waters. As it moves, the droplet senses the companionship of countless others. Rain from earlier clouds, dew released from ferns, snowmelt from distant mountains carried by the river's steady pull. Together, they form a flowing community that travels in silence, each droplet carrying a quiet memory of where it has been. The river widens. The canopy above opens into broader sky. Patches of blue appear between branches, and sunlight deepens in warmth. The droplet continues drifting toward a place where the river begins to broaden more, not yet the sea, but a hint of the path that will eventually lead there. For now, it enjoys the gentle journey, carried peacefully through a world of glimmering reflections and soft-moving water. The river hums around it, calm, steady, unhurried, and the droplet simply flows. Carried gently by the widening river, the droplet settles into a pace that feels almost like dreaming. The current moves steadily but softly, guiding it through long stretches of water where reflections come and go in shimmering patterns. The forest leans back from the banks now, giving the river room to stretch into broad, peaceful curves. Sunlight rests on the water in warm, golden layers. Some parts glisten like polished glass. Others deepen into cool blues, where shadows from tall trees spill across the surface. Each shift of light touches the droplet in a quiet way, making its edges shimmer as it glides along. Around it, other droplets drift in calm companionship. Some come from mountain springs, cold and clear. Others from distant storms, shaped by winds and long journeys. Together, they become the river's silent voice, a soft whispering flow that follows the shape of the land with effortless grace. The droplet feels the gentle pull of the river guiding it forward. Small currents weave through the water, curving around stones, dipping beneath fallen branches, lifting gently where sunlight warms shallow pools. Each moment brings a slight change, a swirl, a lift, a quiet stretch of stillness, all blending into a peaceful rhythm. As the river widens, the canopy above retreats further. The sky opens into a soft, endless blue, scattered with pale drifting clouds. Birds glide overhead, their reflections passing across the water like shadows of wings brushing the river's glassy surface. In the calmer stretches, the droplet drifts without hurry. It moves past patches of reeds that sway with the slightest breeze, their slender stems creating gentle patterns that ripple across the water. Tiny insects skim the surface, sending delicate lines of motion outward in circular trails. Each small disturbance fades quickly, returning the water to its tranquil stillness. Every few moments, the river reveals glimpses of the world beneath its surface. Smooth stones, worn by years of flowing water, soft sand shifting slowly in underwater currents, strands of aquatic plants swaying in slow, graceful motions. The droplet feels the pull of these hidden currents beneath, though it remains near the surface, carried lightly by the flow. The river bends again, curving through open meadows. Here, the air changes, becoming warmer, touched by the scent of grasses and the sweetness of wildflowers that lean toward the water's edge. A soft breeze travels across the meadow and ripples the surface of the river, sending small waves toward the droplet that rock it gently, like a lullaby carried on wind. Further along, the river becomes quiet in a deeper way. The water widens once more, smoothing into a broad mirror that reflects the sky so clearly the droplet feels as though it is drifting between two worlds, sky above, sky below, and the gentle line of trees floating between them like a soft horizon. Here, time feels slower. The river hums in calm, even tones. The droplet rests within this movement, feeling no urgency, sensing only the steady guidance of the water beneath it. But the river continues onward, always. And gradually, the pull becomes stronger, not fast, but purposeful. Hints of the current's direction become more noticeable. A quiet tug forward, a deepening of the river path. The droplet senses that something larger lies ahead, a widening so vast the river no longer returns the same reflections, a place where water begins to gather in greater volume. The light shifts slightly as the river bends toward that open space. Clouds drift overhead, softening the sun's brightness. The air takes on a faint scent of salt, subtle, distant, barely noticeable at first, but growing with each passing moment. The droplet flows with the river's vast breath, moving toward a place where fresh water gradually meets the waiting arms of the sea. But for now, it remains in the gentle cradle of the wide, quiet river, drifting peacefully through soft waves and shimmering light. As the droplet continues its slow journey along the widening river, something shifts in the air. The breeze changes first, carrying a faint coolness touched with the softest hint of salt. Then, the rhythm of the water changes. The river still flows calmly, but there is a new openness to the movement, a quiet pull toward a broader horizon. The droplet drifts through this gentle transition, sensing the river's calm surface spread wider with each passing moment. The banks draw farther apart. The forest thins into clusters of trees that lean toward the water like patient observers. The sky becomes larger, brighter, a soft dome of pale blue stretching without interruption. The first true sign of the sea appears in the water's texture. The smooth river surface begins to ripple in new patterns, stirred by distant tides. The droplet feels the faintest lift beneath it, a movement different from currents shaped by rocks or roots. This is something older, broader, deeper, a rhythm born from moonlight and vast oceans. The river slows itself gently, as though preparing the droplet for the meeting ahead. Its waters become clearer in places, reflecting the sky in soft silver tones. In other places, they deepen into muted greens and blues, swirling around submerged grasses that shift like quiet underwater forests. Further downstream, the scent of salt strengthens. The air grows more open, more spacious. Sound carries differently, as though the world is widening with every breath. The droplet begins to see the change in the water itself. Hints of darker blue appear in the distance, mingling with the river's paler flow. Shadows of small fish glide beneath the surface, weaving through currents that sway like gentle tides. Birds circle overhead, drifting on wide wings, their reflections moving across the water like soft brush strokes. The river merges gradually into the estuary, a place where fresh water and salt water meet in a peaceful blending. Here, the water moves both forward and backward in slow, rhythmic pulses. The droplet feels these pulses, rising slightly with one, sinking gently with another. It is a conversation between river and sea, spoken in tides rather than words. In this mingling place, the light takes on a new quality. Sunbeams stretch farther across the water, turning ripples into long, shimmering paths. The air feels both cool and warm at once, touched by the breath of both land and ocean. Plants along the edges change too. Reeds give way to salt-tolerant grasses, their slender stems bending with the wind. The world here feels open and quiet, a gentle transition between two great realms. As the droplet drifts deeper into the estuary, it meets tiny grains of salt, swirling lightly in the water. These grains dissolve against its surface, altering it in the softest way. The droplet becomes part of a new mixture, no longer only rain or river or forest mist, but a blend shaped by many journeys. The estuary widens even more, becoming a calm, expansive body of water where the boundary between river and sea fades into gentle gradients of color. Ripples stretch out in long, smooth lines, touched by the rhythms of distant ocean currents. And then, without a single sharp moment of change, the river finally becomes the sea. The droplet joins the new vastness with ease. The water beneath it deepens into endless blue. The sound grows softer, more spacious, a quiet that feels both large and comforting. Waves rise and fall in slow, rolling motions that cradle the droplet like a gentle lullaby. Here, the droplet is home again. Returned to the great, open water where its journey first began. The sea welcomes it with a calm embrace, folding it into its shimmering surface. It floats, weightless and peaceful, feeling the vastness beneath and the sky above. A perfect balance between two endless worlds. And though its journey has carried it far, this moment is not an ending. It is simply another soft place to rest before the cycle begins again. The droplet floats gently on the sea's surface, rocking in the slow cradle of the waves. Here, everything feels softer, quieter, wider. The world has opened into a great blue expanse, stretching far beyond the horizon, where sky and water blend into one shimmering line. The sea moves in long, rhythmic breaths. Waves rise with a calm lift, then settle again into smooth, glassy stretches that reflect the sky like a vast mirror. Each rise and fall carries the droplet with effortless grace, as though the ocean is humming a lullaby just beneath the surface. Sunlight glides across the water in warm, golden ribbons. Some ribbons scatter into dazzling sparks on small ripples. Others dive deeper, illuminating faint shapes below. Drifting strands of seagrass, tiny fish glimmering like moving flecks of silver, gentle currents swirling in pale underwater spirals. The droplet rests on the surface, feeling the subtle play of these currents beneath it. Each current moves with quiet purpose, shaped by distant winds and the turning of the earth. None of them rush. They carry the droplet in smooth, wandering paths across the sea's gentle skin. Far overhead, clouds drift like soft islands in the sky. Their shadows move slowly across the water, brushing the droplet with brief touches of coolness. When the clouds pass, warmth returns, steady, comforting, and bright. The air tastes of salt, clean and crisp. It carries the distant calls of seabirds gliding above the waves. Their wings cast moving shapes on the water, creating soft dimples of shadow that drift alongside the droplet before gliding away again. For a moment, the sea is completely still. A wide, quiet calm spreads across the surface, turning the ocean into a perfect reflection of the sky. The droplet floats in this stillness, suspended between two endless blue worlds, sky above, ocean below. In this quiet moment, the droplet feels both small and part of something vast. It is a single bead of water resting on a body that holds memories from every corner of the earth. Storms that roared across distant shores, gentle rains that fell on quiet hills, ancient glaciers that melted in slow, bright streams. The sea holds all of these stories, blending them into its own peaceful rhythm. A breeze begins to move across the water. Its touch is gentle, carrying the warmth of sunlight and the coolness of open air. It creates tiny ripples that shimmer like silver threads, weaving across the sea's surface. The droplet drifts with them, carried into a new stretch of softly rolling waves. As the sun climbs slightly higher, the droplet begins to warm. Its edges loosen, not enough to lift skyward yet, but enough to sense the possibility. This warming is gentle, a reminder of the cycle that always turns, even in the calmest places. Below, the sea shifts again. A deeper current passes beneath, lifting the droplet a little before setting it down in a smoother, broader motion. These underwater currents feel ancient, shaped by tides and lunar rhythms older than any story the droplet has known. The sea glows brighter as sunlight spreads further across the open water. Its surface sparkles in small, flickering lights that dance across each wave. The droplet floats among these lights, drifting slowly toward a place where the water feels warmer, lighter, a place where the air above holds the faint shimmer of rising vapor. But there is no hurry. The droplet rests in this peaceful expanse, enjoying the slow sway of the sea. It moves with each gentle wave, feeling the warmth gather on its surface, sensing the quiet preparation for the next soft transformation. For now, it simply floats, held by the sea, touched by the sky, resting in the calm embrace of both. Soon, the warmth will draw it upward again. Soon, the journey will continue, but not yet. Not while the ocean remains this quiet, this vast, this beautifully still. The droplet rests on the quiet surface of the sea as the sunlight grows warmer, spreading softly across the wide blue expanse. Each passing moment brings a little more brightness, a gentle heat that loosens the droplet's edges and stirs something airy within it. The sea rocks it in slow, tender motions, preparing it for the next chapter of its long, peaceful journey. The warmth deepens, not sharply, never sharply, but with the softness of morning light stretching across the water. The droplet begins to feel lighter, almost weightless, as if the ocean is exhaling through it. Around it, countless other droplets shimmer in the sun. Some lift first, rising as faint traces of vapor that swirl upward in delicate spirals. Others linger on the surface for a while longer, enjoying the calm sway of the sea. The transformation happens slowly, naturally, like a thought dissolving into breath. The droplet feels this shift, gentle and familiar. It loosens its hold on the surface, becoming thin along its edges, softening into a mist-like form. The sea, warm and patient, releases it without hesitation. And then, with the lightest lift, the droplet rises. At first, it hovers just above the water, a tiny wisp of vapor carried by sunlight. The sea below glimmers in soft, shimmering patterns, reflecting shades of blue and gold. The droplet feels both close to the water and already part of the sky. A warm breeze moves across the surface, gathering rising vapor into airy threads. The droplet joins these threads, drifting upward in a soft, spiraling motion. Each breath of wind brings it higher, away from the waves and into the smooth, open air. As it ascends, the world widens. The horizon becomes clearer. Seabirds glide beneath it now, their wings carving gentle arcs over the water. Far below, the ocean stretches in vast, rolling motions, its surface sparkling like scattered stars in daylight. The droplet rises into this bright space, carried by warmth alone. It begins to feel more like a whisper than a drop, a faint shimmer in the air that dances with the changing light. Other droplets gather nearby, forming small clusters of mist that drift together, weightless and serene. Higher still, the air cools slightly, The droplet senses the shift, its edges gathering in response, becoming more defined once again. This cooling is soft, a gentle reminder that the sky carries its own rhythms, warm air lifting, cool air shaping, all moving in balanced steps. The droplet continues upward, passing through thin wisps of vapor that curl and stretch like pale ribbons. These ribbons drift across the sky in slow, beautiful patterns, forming the earliest beginnings of clouds. The droplet slips among them, joining their airy shapes, feeling the coolness embrace it like a familiar friend. The sunlight becomes diffused, turning bright white into gentle silver. Shadows soften, edges blur. The droplet drifts into a forming cloud, returning to a place of stillness and suspension. Inside the cloud, the world feels hushed again, a soft, glowing sanctuary high above the sea. Moisture gathers here in delicate layers, swirling in calm motions. Droplets brush against one another, merging, separating, floating without weight. The droplet takes its place among them, settling into this suspended realm with peaceful ease. It has risen from the forest, fallen through the sky, traveled through river and sea, and now ascends once more into the quiet heart of the clouds. Here it rests again, held gently by cool air and soft currents. It begins to round into a droplet once more, tiny, shimmering, waiting for the next moment when the sky will release it again. The cycle is turning. The story continues, and the droplet, patient and calm, settles into the cloud's gentle embrace, knowing that soon it will fall again, returning to the world it has touched so many times before. Inside the cloud's cool, muted world, the droplet rests once more, surrounded by countless companions drifting in quiet suspension. Everything here moves in slow, deliberate motions, gentle eddies of air, faint swirls of vapor, soft shadows drifting across the cloud's interior. Time seems to stretch, loosen, and flow. The droplet feels itself growing rounder, gathering tiny beads of moisture that settle on its cool surface. Each bead adds a little weight, a little shape, a little presence. It is being patiently prepared, not rushed, but lovingly guided toward its next descent. Around it, the cloud hums with a subtle rhythm. Warm air rises from the sea below, lifting some droplets higher. Cooler air descends from above, guiding others slowly downward. In this peaceful cycle, droplets drift past one another like quiet travelers, crossing paths along soft, hidden currents. Sometimes, two droplets touch and merge, joining their journeys. Sometimes they separate, drifting away into different pockets of cloud. Each movement is gentle, unhurried, shaped only by the whisper-light balance of air. The droplet drifts downward by a small degree, barely enough to notice, yet enough to feel the shift in the cloud's breath. This lower region of the cloud is cooler, denser, and filled with droplets that sparkle faintly when filtered light slips through the cloud's softly glowing walls. The droplet lingers here. It floats among companions that glimmer with hints of sunlight and distant reflections of the sea. These reflections dance across their rounded surfaces, tiny worlds contained in each bead of water, shifting with every subtle motion. Gradually, the cloud begins to thicken in places, edges billow, shadows deepen, and the soft pull of gravity becomes more noticeable. The cloud prepares itself the way a tide prepares to turn, slowly, smoothly, as though gathering a quiet breath. The droplet senses this change. Its weight increases gently as more vapor condenses around it. It becomes fuller, more defined, more ready. Yet, even now, the cloud holds it tenderly, delaying the fall just a little longer. Outside, the sky remains bright. Sunlight glows against the clouds' outer curves, illuminating them in pale silver and soft white. Birds drift through nearby currents of air, their wings brushing against wisps of cloud that break apart like feathers of mist. Inside the cloud, moisture gathers into delicate threads that spiral downward. The droplet follows these threads, guided with effortless ease. As it descends, the air cools in subtle waves, shaping the droplet into something perfectly round, a tiny globe of shimmering clarity. The moment of release approaches, though nothing about it feels rushed or sudden. It is a gentle readiness, a soft acceptance. The droplet reaches the cloud's lower edge. Here, light filters through in hazy, glowing sheets. The world below appears as a softened blend of colors. Blues from the sea, greens from distant shores, hints of gold where sunlight touches the landscape. The droplet pauses in this luminous threshold, held by the last trace of lift suspended between sky and earth. And then, with a quiet, effortless letting go, the cloud releases it. The droplet begins to fall once more, not fast, not sharply, but with the same grace that has carried it through every stage of its journey. Beneath it, the world waits in gentle stillness, a place it has visited before, a place it will return to again as the cycle continues in endless, calming loops. For now, the droplet glides downward, feeling the familiar coolness of open air, a tiny sphere of light and water drifting peacefully toward earth, toward sea, toward the next quiet moment in its ancient, soothing path. Falling from the cloud's quiet edge, the droplet drifts through open air with a calm, familiar grace. Below, the world appears softened, washed in gentle colors, blurred by distance, glowing with the pale light of a settling sky. The droplet does not rush. It glides, carried by cool breezes that weave through its path like soft guiding hands. As it descends, thin wisps of mist brush past. Birds move through the air in slow arcs, their wings leaving delicate ripples that gently shift the droplet's fall. The sea beneath stretches out in a wide, shimmering expanse, its surface rippling with patterns shaped by wind and tide. The droplet feels the pull of the ocean long before it reaches it, a quiet invitation to return to the place where its journey began. Warm air rises from the sea, softening its fall for a moment. Then cooler air below guides it downward once more. Every shift is gentle, like a long exhale from the world itself. The waves glisten in silver as the droplet draws closer. Foam gathers at their peaks, catching sunlight in trembling, brilliant flashes. Between each crest lies a quiet valley of water, smooth and dark, reflecting the sky in soft blue-gray tones. The droplet continues downward, feeling lighter even as it falls. It passes the boundary where sky meets sea, a place where reflections bend and shimmer, sunlight diffuses into warm glow, and the line between water and air becomes beautifully blurred. With a delicate touch, the droplet meets the ocean. There is no splash, only a gentle merging. The droplet slips seamlessly into the water's surface, spreading briefly before becoming part of the sea once more. Waves fold over it with soft, rolling motions, welcoming it back into their ancient rhythm. Beneath the surface, the water feels warm and expansive. Currents move slowly, guiding the droplet through drifting strands of seaweed and shimmering schools of tiny fish. Light filters down in golden beams, scattering into soft constellations beneath the waves. Here, the droplet rests, It becomes part of a vast, flowing world filled with quiet life and hidden stories. It remembers, not in words, but in feeling, the cool forest moss, the soft cradle of a leaf, the gentle pull of the river, the high glowing stillness of the cloud. Time unfolds gently in the sea. The droplet moves with currents that pass through deep calm and shimmering surface light. Sometimes it rises toward warmth, becoming thinner, softer, ready to lift once again. Sometimes it sinks into cooler layers where the water holds a slow, peaceful quiet. The cycle calls to it, not as an instruction, but as a natural unfolding. One day, sunlight will warm it enough that it begins to loosen again, a soft thread of vapor lifting upward from the sea. It will rise through shimmering air, meet the clouds' gentle embrace, drift through silver mists, fall to earth in quiet grace, and travel once more through forests, soils, rivers, and tides. Again and again it will know these places. It will rest upon leaves, settle into moss, drift through wide rivers, and glide across open seas. Every part of the world will hold it for a moment, then release it in the soft, endless rhythm of water. For now, it simply rests in the sea, warm, peaceful, embraced by gentle waves, and the cycle continues, without beginning or end, a calm, eternal breath shared between sea and sky, leaf and river, mist and rain, a quiet journey repeating itself in the softest, most comforting way imaginable. Beneath the ocean's calm surface, the droplet settles into a deeper stillness. Here, the water moves differently, not in quick ripples or bright reflections, but in long, slow currents shaped by the breath of the sea itself. Each current feels like a soft path, guiding the droplet with patient intention. Light from above drifts downward in pale golden beams, but it fades gently, softening into muted blues the farther it travels into the quiet depths. Particles of sand shimmer briefly in the light, before disappearing into the dim water carried by gentle underwater breezes. The droplet moves with these shifting lights, gliding past small, drifting clouds of plankton that glow faintly in the sunlit water. Tiny sea creatures pass by, almost invisible, their movements delicate and slow. They create tiny swirls that brush against the droplet, nudging it into a new, unhurried direction. Everything here feels peaceful and old. The sea murmurs with a subtle hum, a low, comforting vibration that seems to come from everywhere at once. It's the sound of countless currents blending, of waves far above breaking in soft rhythms, of tides moving in ancient cycles. The droplet rests among these layers, feeling no need to rise or change yet. It drifts past smooth stones scattered across the sandy floor and through forests of seagrass that sway like ribbons. Each motion is slow, dreamlike, gentle. Eventually, a warmer current finds the droplet, a smooth, lifting thread of water rising toward the sunlight above. The current wraps the droplet in soft warmth, carrying it upward again, closer to the shimmering surface. But for now, the droplet simply surrenders to the quiet sway of the sea, letting the ocean cradle it in the deepest calm. Night arrives softly over the ocean, settling like a cool blanket across the water. The moon rises full and bright, spreading silver light along the sea's surface until it becomes a long, shimmering path stretching from horizon to shore. The droplet, drifting near the surface now, feels the cool glow settling onto the water. Moonlight doesn't warm the sea, but it gives it a different kind of softness, a quiet clarity, as if the world is holding its breath in peaceful wonder. Waves move in slow, steady rolls. Each crest captures a sliver of moonlight that glints for a moment before sliding into the next wave. The droplet floats among these glowing currents, lifted gently, then lowered again in a soothing rhythm. Far below, nocturnal creatures rise to greet the darkness. Small fish shimmer like tiny lanterns. Plankton glow with faint blue-green light that flickers beneath the waves, like stars drifting in water. The droplet moves through this underwater starlight, carried by calm, rising currents that swirl softly upward toward the surface. The air above is quiet. Only the faint sound of distant waves breaking along a far-off shore reaches the open sea. The breeze is cool and careful, ruffling the water without disturbing its serenity. As the droplet lifts closer to the surface, it begins to feel the tender pull of evaporation again. A gentle readiness, a quiet loosening. But moonlight keeps it grounded a little longer, allowing it to rest in this silver-blue calm, floating in the soft glow of night before rising once more into sky. With sunrise comes a warm, golden breath across the sea. The light stretches softly over the water, weaving through the last hints of night and collecting in delicate bands near the horizon. The warming air begins to lift moisture from the ocean surface, not quickly, never quickly, but in airy threads that curl upward like soft ribbons. The droplet feels this warmth wrap around it, loosening its form with quiet tenderness. It begins to rise again, joining other droplets in a slow, swirling ascent that forms a gentle layer of fog above the sea. This fog drifts low, just above the water, moving with the calm rhythm of the morning breeze. It muffles sound, turning the waves into soft murmurs and the distant calls of seabirds into faint, soothing notes. The droplet floats within this fog, wrapped in cool, pale light. Sunbeams filter through the fog layer, scattering into golden rays that paint the air with warmth. Each ray touches the droplet with the softest glow, turning it into a tiny prism of light. Above, the sky brightens in slow steps, pinks melting into golds, golds softening into gentle blues. The droplet feels the fog rising with the dawn, lifting farther from the sea's surface. The air grows lighter, warmer, and clearer. Fog begins to thin into scattered wisps of mist, still drifting in quiet unity. The droplet holds its place in this gentle morning world, resting inside the fog's soft embrace before continuing its upward path to the waiting sky. As the fog rises, the droplet feels the warmth of the morning deepen, guiding it higher into open air. The mist around it stretches thin, unraveling into soft, drifting trails that catch sunlight like gentle threads. Higher still, these threads begin to gather. Moisture folds into itself, cooling into small beads that drift into a forming cloud. The droplet moves with them, entering a new sanctuary of light and vapor. Inside this growing cloud, everything glows. Sunlight filters through in soft, golden sheets, turning the cloud into a warm lantern suspended in the sky. Droplets shine like tiny beads of amber, each holding a glimmer of light deep within. The droplet feels itself condense once more, rounding, forming, becoming whole in the way only clouds can shape water. It rests among others, drifting in slow, swirling motion shaped by the quiet breath of air. The cloud drifts across the sky, gentle and luminous. Warm breezes lift it, cool breezes shape it. Inside, the world feels timeless, soft, unhurried. The droplet becomes part of this glowing, drifting realm. Cloudlight carried effortlessly above the sea, held between warmth and coolness, existing in a soft balance that feels peaceful in every direction. Soon, the droplet will grow heavy again. Soon, the cycle will turn once more. But not yet. For now, it rests in a cloud bright with morning, floating in quiet radiance high above the world. Within the warm glow of the cloud, the droplet senses a familiar shift, a slow gathering of weight, a tiny deepening at its core. Moisture condenses around it in delicate layers, strengthening its form, preparing it gently for the next fall. Outside, the cloud floats across open sky, casting a soft shadow over the sea below. The sun warms one side of the cloud, cool breezes touch the other, creating subtle currents that guide droplets into new, gentle pathways. The droplet drifts downward within the cloud, passing through cool pockets of air that steady its form. It brushes lightly against other droplets, merging with one, then drifting apart again. Each shift, each touch, each moment builds toward the promise of a new descent. Below, the sea glimmers, a vast welcoming canvas of blue. Farther off, land appears in soft shapes, hills rising gently, forests stretching toward sky. The droplet lingers near the cloud's lower edge. Light glows through the misty boundary, turning it into a luminous curtain. The world below looks peaceful, calm, ready. And then, with the gentlest release, gravity invites it downward once more. The droplet begins to fall, gliding through air that feels like cool silk. Its journey will take it where the world is waiting, to forest, to leaf, to river, to sea, to all the places it has known and all the places it has yet to touch. And as it falls, it carries a quiet promise that the cycle will continue, soft and eternal, a peaceful thread connecting earth and sky in endless, soothing rhythm.